Hi, in this tutorial we're going to go through how you can control a sequencer using widgets. So we can play, pause, continue where we are, start in a specific location, reverse, and also control it via a slider. So we can basically scrub through the sequencer. Okay, so for starters, I'm using the third person template in UE 5.6.1. And we're going to just create a few things here to make our lives a little easier. So if I go to the content, right click, blueprint class, search for HUD. Let's go HUD, and let's call it BP HUD. And let's go back here, blueprint class, let's go for game mode, or just click up here, either way. GM sequence control. And let's go back again. Let's go use a widget to create the actual HUD widget. And W HUD. And while we're at it, let's make a player controller as well. So player controller, and PC sequence. Okay, so firstly, let's just assign this here in your world settings. If you come down here to game mode override and select the GM sequence control, and let's just file save all those. And now if we go into the HUD here, let's add a canvas panel, and for the buttons, let's actually make a separate widget. So if we duplicate this and call this one W buttons and open that, and we can delete that canvas panel here. Let's search for a button, drag that in there, wrap it with a border, make it 2, why not? Let's also change this. So if you click on the top right here, go to custom on screen. Let's say it's 500 wide by 100 height is fine for this. And let's go button, let's say BTN option. Let's rename this, make sure its variable is ticked because we're going to need this for later. And also, as we're currently previewing what it would look like at 500 by 100, let's also add a size box so the other widget, the HUD widget we put it on, actually respects that size. Can't do it like that. So if I click on border here, go right click, wrap with and size box, yep. And again, let's match these here. So width override 500, height 100, or whatever you have it set to. So 500, 100, there we go. Compile, save. And now what we also need to do, so this will be like a generic button we have, which will handle the events we want. Let me close that animation thing as well, so it's not in the way. So make sure you click on your button here, go down, and you see the click events, press events, release hovered, unhovered, etc. If you have more using your own custom button, they'll be here too. So on clicked, and now we're going to make our own event dispatcher. Click on that. Let's say on option clicked, and let's do this. Cool. And what this will do is essentially mirror this on clicked event on here, so then we can call it and put it on this HUD to run any logic that we need. So let's compile and save, and let's delete the tick and construct because we don't need them, but we do need this here. So let's also go back and add the text, and let's search for a text box and go drag it onto the button. And now what we also need to do is click on the text, come here, rename it TXT, option is variable tick, yep. And now what we're going to do is set up it so we can change the text to whatever we want it to be. So get this variable here. If you don't see it in these this panel, simply because you need to tick his variable. So back to the graph, text option here, already dragged it in. If I pull from the pin, search for set text, this one here, grab that into the, drag that into the set text node, and if we pull from in text and just promote that to a variable as well, say option text, and in order to edit it on the HUD, we need to click on this little eye or this little instance editable here, which they do the exact same thing. So compile, save. And now we go back to the HUD. If we search for a vertical box, because we want our buttons to be aligned, well, vertically, you could have horizontally or however you want, it doesn't matter that much. But let's also now search for the buttons here, whatever you've named this. If we search in the palette, W_buttons in this case, click, drag into the vertical box. And now it's actually not set properly to size to content here. So if I click on that, it will now respect the size of the button here. And if we just click on this, Control D to duplicate it a few times, and we're going to have this one be our play button. So again, we've got this option text that we set up. So if I just type in play, enter, and it will just update. Same with this one. Let's set up a reverse, or stop even, sorry. And then the last one will be reverse. Okay. Let's also just add a little bit of padding on that. So select them all, padding 5. Yep, that's fine. Compile, save. And in order to get them to show up on the screen, we've set up this HUD class here, and we have this HUD widget which will contain them, which we need to actually create it first, or spawn it in. So if we click on the HUD, we go event graph, don't need tick or overlaps, just get rid of those there. And if we drag from here, go create widget. And now we search for the WHUD, and you can promote this to a variable here if you need it for anything else, but for the purpose of this, it's just going to be a HUD that exists for the entirety of the game. So we don't need to spawn it or toggle the visibility or anything. But if you pull from here and search for add to viewport, and now if I compile, save, play in editor, and this is because I didn't set something properly, did I? And I think it's probably in the game sequence. I didn't tag, yep, okay. So I didn't actually set the classes we used. So basically it's just an empty game mode. But if we go into the game mode, we select our player controller we made, our HUD class we made, and if you've made any other changes to the character or player state, game class, game state, game session and stuff, then obviously change those. But now I do that and it should respect it. There we go. I didn't change the pawn again. So default pawn, we're going to use the third person character, which is from the template. Compile, save, go back in, and there we go. Finally, it is there. But a couple of issues. We can't actually move, and we can't click on the widgets or do anything really. And the reason that is because on our player controller, we haven't set anything up. So if you open our player controller, go to the event graph, delete tick, don't need that. Just get in the way. And now what we want to do is just add the default mappings that are already set up on the template. So I'm just going to mirror those. So let's go get enhanced input subsystem, and it's going to be this one. And now we need to go add mapping context, plug it in, and the new template for 5.6.1, if you don't know, has two different starting mapping context, one for moving and one for looking around with mouse. Not really sure why they did it like that, but here we are. So I need to plug that in there as well. So make sure the targets are plugged into this. So the default here, which handles, I mean, if you just have a quick look, so jump, move, look, but for some reason they don't have the look here for mouse. Bit weird, but if you click on this other one here and we go to mouse, it will now have that. So you can move and look around. But the other thing to take account, I mean, I'll just show quickly. I can move and look around and all that stuff, but I can't interact with the widgets. So let's go back to the controller. Basically, the reason that is the input mode is not set correctly. So if I, at the end of this, right click, search for set input mode, you have game and UI, game only, and UI only. Now, because we want to be able to move around in the game and click on UI or buttons, specifically in this case, we want to set this here to set input mode, game and UI. Now plug it in there, and the player controller, let's go self. In widget to focus, we don't actually need anything for that here. You could potentially cast to the HUD class and plug it in, but it's not required. Same with these here, you don't really need to worry about those. But for the purpose of this, we're also going to add at the end here, just for visibility reasons. Let's go set or show mouse cursor. Make sure that's ticked. Compile, save. And now we can just move around, look, and because we can always see the mouse, I can actually hover over these and click them if I need. But currently they don't actually do anything because we haven't set them up to do anything. Okay, so now we're going to create our level sequence. So if we come up to the top here, click on this, go add level sequence, and let's go LV demo sequence. Demo sec. Okay, so let's just grab this one in the scene here. We're not actually going to need it. We'll spawn it from our HUD. So let's delete that, go onto our HUD. Let's also delete that tick and construct because we're going to create the widget, the sequence here, sorry. So go create sequence, level sequence player. Let's click on here, select the one we have. And on this, you don't want the out actor here, you want the return value. So now we're going to promote this to a variable so we can use it in later events and functions. So let's call it LV demo. Okay, so that's sorted there. Let's save that. And now we're just going to do a simple thing on the sequencer here. If we search for something like a cube, let's drag the cube out. And let's say we want this to just move from left to right. So let's just move that over there. If you make sure that you're clicked onto this and you add here, add act to track, and it will appear up on the top here. Or you can also just search for it down here. It should be the same thing. And now we're going to press add new key. So we store that it's at this position at this current time, and if we just play for a little bit, stop, let's say about 60, it has now moved over here, and now we want to save its position here. So again, make sure it's set further away and add new key. So now if I go to the start or to front, press play, it's going to move from left to right. Very simple. So if we go back to the HUD and where we have our buttons here, we should rename those actually. So let's do that quickly. So W buttons here. Let's say play BTN. and stop btn, whoops, and reverse btn. Okay, compile that, and now if we click on our play button here, scroll down to the bottom, and again we're going to see these events that we've assigned, and click on option clicked. And now anytime we click on this, it's going to play the sequence essentially. So if we drag from here our stored level sequence, get, and now let's go play. So that will just handle the entire thing there. Compile, save that, go back into the level here, and we should also save this here, save, and now play. So you see it doesn't play the cube animation we set out, but if we now go up to here, play, it will just simply play it. Okay, so now that we have that simple play set up, let's set the stop and reverse. So let's go down to variables here, and for our reverse button, let's do the same thing we had with our event. So on option clicked, click this here, use our level demo reference, and now let's just say reverse. So play reverse, and then let's also do our stop button here. So on options, clicked, level demo, drag from here, stop. And there we go, compile, save, let's hit play. And now if we go play and stop, and let's go play and let it finish, and now if we click on reverse, it will reverse. Okay. And a couple of other things to make this a little bit smoother. So if I were to play and stop, the cube has stopped here, but if I play again, it's just going to play from the start. But if we wanted to play from this position or reverse from this position, again the reverse is going to start from the right at the end, and these might not necessarily do what you want them to. So let's just close this here and sort that out. So to make things a little bit easier for us, let's make some functions here. So let's go play, and we'll add an input of a ball of, let's say, from start, question mark. And now if we also set up a pause, because currently the sequence buttons aren't pausing, they're just stopping, which is also resetting them to the start position. So, and we're going to grab the level demo, get, and we're going to say stop at current time, which is essentially acting as a pause. So to full future-proof a few things, let's just drag this pause here in case you were to spam the play button. You don't want it to have any weird behavior, so it will just stop it where it currently is. And if we get this from start ball, so as this local variable, we can search here and do get from start, hold B, left click to add the branch, plug this in, and now we're going to have to make sure that we can set it so it always plays from the start no matter what. So we're going to grab this here, we are going to set playback position, let's make playback parameters, and the time will be 0. So if you want to play from the start, true, we're going to first set it back here, and then we're going to play it. So play there. And You maybe could get away with not having this part, but this is just making sure 100% that it jumps to this time. Or we should also set this position type here to time. And now for when we don't want it to play from the start, so we want it to continue where it currently is, let's just copy this here, paste it down here, and we also want it to play from its position, so get play there. And in order to get the current time that it's at, we need to go level, get current time, and if you're familiar with structs here, you'll see this one here we can split open, but these values we can't actually use in here. These are related to something else, in particular frame time, but we want to use actual time. So if we recombine these, we need to drag from this one here and search for qualified frame time seconds. And now this will give us the time that the frame is, so 0 seconds, 1.5, whatever it may be. And that should be fine. Play and pause at the current time, just in case. Depending on what we select this ball to be, or we either play from the start and then play it, or set the playback to 0, then play it. This one here, we're going to set the playback position to what it should be and then play it. And now if we go to the event graph, we should also change this option stop here to our pause if we want to. Stop it on the where it currently is. So to be honest, it'd probably make more sense if I name that pause. And what we're going to do as well is add these other buttons here for continue. So duplicate that one. Let's go continue. Let's change that to play from start. Let's say that as continue. And back to the graph. And now where we have our, let me just delete that as well. Pause. That's still called stop, so I should rename that to pause. You can of course have it as a stop button if you wish, but for now we want it to pause where it is. So play button here, we're going to delete that and we're going to use our play function. So this here, we want to play it from the start. The continue button, which has an underscore at the end, a bit annoying. Just delete that. And go down to the event on option clicked. Move that up here so it's near the play. We can just copy and paste that and untick this. Okay. And reverse, we haven't changed. That will just do what it's doing. So compile, save, play. So now if I say play from start, pause, and now it's halfway here. If I click continue, it will just continue where it was. Now if I hit reverse, it will just go back to where it was in the beginning. So again, play from start, pause. If I want to play from start again here, I can do that again. Continue, pause, continue, pause, continue, pause, reverse, pause. Okay, so what if you want to set the sequence to be a very specific time? There are a few ways you can do this. One, you could come over to where we've changed these here. We have play. You could use this node. You could manually type in the time, whatever it may be, you know, start at 3 seconds, for example. But the easier way is probably to manage with marked frames here. So this is what this column will deal with. So if we go back to here, and let's say I want to start it right in the middle, for example, if I right click on here and I go add mark, now on this little marker here, if I click on it or right click on it even, I can come here, I can see the frame number, I can label it, and let's just say middle. You can change the comment color and, you know, some of these other things here. What we should also do is change this just purely for visual, representing the time. If we click on this FPS little arrow here, go down to show time as seconds. So now we can see it's in seconds and not frame time. And that marker's still in the middle. Let's reset this, save, and file save all. And now if we go back into our HUD and let's make another button and let's say start at middle. So copy the continue, btn middle, and start at middle, start at middle. And let's come down here and just click on our options clicked. So, and let's bring it up to these, because these are the main play buttons here. Just make space for that. Okay, so for this again, we're going to make a function just to handle things a little easier in case you want to have lots of markers and jump to all different kinds of locations. So let's create another one and let's just call it jump to marker. And let's feed these inputs of the marker, which would be a string. So let's call that marker. And we can also feed in a ball of autoplay. So if you wanted to just jump to it and stop, or we want it to jump to it and then play. So auto play on jump. Let's capitalize the O so it gives it a space. Okay. And let's say jump to marker, we want it to pause what it was doing. Again, this is just stopping at the current time, if it was doing anything, that is. And now we want to grab our level demo sequence, set playback position, pull down that, let's plug it in there. Let's go to the marker there, so you can either drag it directly in, or if you right click search for marker, right at the bottom will be a local variable here, so plug that right in. And we're going to say marked frame for this one, and we're going to say jump. And now at the end of here we're going to also do another branch, so hold B, left click, plug that in, and we're going to use this local variable here of autoplay on jump, plugged it in, and we are going to just simply use this and go play. And yeah, that should be fine. So let's compile save and let's go jump. And we called this middle. Compile, save that. So when we click on this middle button here, it will just go right there and stop. So if I just press start a middle, there you go, it's jumped to the sequence. It hasn't auto-played because we haven't told it to do that. But if I close, go back in, and now if I say, well, I tick this box, I'm now saying, okay, jump to middle and then play. So jump and play. There we go. Last little bit here, what if you wanted to use a slider to basically scrub through the sequence? So if we come back to our HUD and we search for slider, let's do that and drag it onto the canvas panel, click on it, go to anchors. If you hold Control and Shift, and we're going to select this one here, so it basically fills this bottom space. And to make it easier to select, let's just offset left by 100 and right by 100. So now it just pushes it in a little bit. And let's raise it up by minus 75, sure. Compile save. So if we click on the slider, go down here, and on value changed, let's grab that. So we can get the current play time. So if I go level, or end time even, so if I go get end time, and again this is frame time, so let's convert that by going qualified frame time seconds, and what we want to do is search from here, go map range clamped, because sliders are values of 0 to 1, whereas this could be anything essentially, but it's going to be 0 to 5 because that is the length here of our sequence. If I were to drag or move this, now it would be 0 to 5.5. Let's just keep it at 5 here for now. So if I go back here and for the value again, this is always be a 0 to 1 value, so we want to map this value to the range of whatever this is going to be. So if I say that is 0 to 1, because that again, slider, and now this is going to be 0, start of the sequence to end of the sequence, so 0 to end. And we want to grab our level demo sequence reference, drag from that, set, play, back, position, make, and make sure you set this down here to time, and let's say jump. So feed the time in to the playback node, feed this in here, so when we move the slider it's actually going to do what it's supposed to, and compile save, play, and now I won't click any of these buttons here, but if I drag this you'll notice it moves the cube, and because our cube ends at about 3 seconds on, our slider is 5 seconds, it's not going to do anything here, and about here is about 3 seconds. So yeah.